the Sunday morning, everybody. Welcome to this baby we call the Sweat. I am Emerson Latzia. This is Julian Edlow. We got you covered here for the next 2 hours, talking anything and everything your beautiful brains desire. How you doing today, man? You look great. That's a similar shirt to what you wore yesterday.
The one I wore yesterday was from Italy. This one's not.
Oui, bro.
It was a very fancy one. For a very fancy day. We gave out like 1 million bets yesterday. They did very well.
Indeed. They did go very well. These are some of the bets that hopefully go very well that we'll be talking about throughout this show. As for what's coming up, who's on the bubble? So we're going to be talking about teams on the bubble for March Madness here. Jules is going to take you inside which ones to bet to make the tournament, which ones to steer clear of. How about a massive NBA slate? You're a big NBA guy.
That's true.
You had to be happy about what your Celtics did last night.
And happier when they make us money, too.
Indeed, big man. And then a DFS preview for the Major League Baseball season ahead. As of right now, we've mentioned March Madness, and if you caught this show yesterday, we're not necessarily concerning ourselves with that at this time. We're talking about February frenzy here, and you love February frenzy. And yesterday, you did hand out plenty of winning bets. So good job, Julian. You won't take a victory lap, but I will for you. But in terms of the biggest game we talked about yesterday was Houston and Baylor. Now, kind of a bad beat there where Baylor had the opportunity to make that free throw on the and one with a few seconds to go. Missed the free throw. Houston almost won at the buzzer there. Was that the big bad beat of the day?
I don't even know if it's a bad beat. It was
almost is.
It was a tough loss because, I mean, Baylor was down 16 at halftime. They really had to grind back to stay in that game. But yeah, of course, you're a free throw away from whether Houston scores or not, covering that 2.5 that we took with Baylor as the home dog. So it would have been nice to get that one. Big win for Houston. Not necessarily as bad of a loss for Baylor when it comes to seeding and everything in March, but it would have been a huge get for them to win that game against Houston. It was a freshman center that shoots about 55% at the free throw line, so the coin flip didn't go down. Nisi, by the way, he's going to be a first-round pick, though, top 20 pick. He's kind of like a Clint Capella.
In this upcoming draft, which we talked about before the show, and you said is a weak class. You're not very excited about it.
It's a weak class this year. Nisi from Baylor is kind of like a Clint Capella comp that could go back into the lottery. I like him.
Yeah, and you think me texting you there towards the end of regulation is bad luck. That's like you're now betting superstition. If I text you, wow, what a game we got going here.
Yeah, I didn't appreciate it. I don't even remember what you texted me.
Yeah, don't read all the texts in our group.
I won't read them all. Okay. Whatever. Baylor eyeball emoji, and then I literally look up from my phone and they missed the free throw.
Yeah, you're welcome, by the way. We are going to talk some bubble teams coming up, as we have already teased in the show, but which bubble teams here, Jules, yesterday helped themselves?
Wake was already minus 265 when they closed on DK Sportsbook to get in. They were probably going to make it. They could even afford to lose to Duke and make it. But with that win over a top 10 team at home, that pretty much secures Wake, who's been a really good team all year, getting into the field.
And the big story coming out of that, too, was the court storming. And then Kyle Filipowski there, colliding with a kid and stormed the court. And then Duke playing the victim again.
It's a tough look for everybody, to be honest. I get it. You're an unranked team. You beat a conference rival who's ranked in the top 10.
That's like a Super Bowl for Wake, though. That feels good when you beat them.
You were favored.
Yeah,
Duke's lost a handful of games. Yeah. You've won a handful of games. Ken Palm's got you ranked 20th in the country. I put more stock in what Ken Palm, like all these other ratings that have Wake Forest just a shade below Duke, hence why they were home favorites. Whereas, other people want to look at not ranked versus top 10 and let that determine. So, should Wake have stormed the court? I like to save it for bigger games, like beat number one, storm the court, or whatever. And then on Duke's side of things, maybe give him a few seconds to get out of there when you get a bunch of wild fans in a college player's face right after a bad loss. Maybe he's going to do something a little bit silly to try and get in the way. I don't know, but nobody comes out looking good.
Have you ever stormed a court or a field before?
No. I would only storm a court if my team beat like a
Okay.
It's different. I'm a Rhode Island Ram. If we beat anybody, maybe we'll get out there and rush the court.
Indeed.
But I think it's for like top 5 wins that you have to have.
Absolutely. You didn't see UCF storming the court after beating 23rd ranked Texas Tech yesterday.
You had a home. There you go.
Listen, I was ripping my clothes off inside my living room. I thought it was a fantastic win. Do you think
gained a little bit of respect maybe for UCF?
All right. So does St. John storm the court today if they beat Creighton? We're talking about a matchup here. It's a clear case of two teams going in opposite directions. It does feel like Creighton has hit its stride. You got Rick Pitino calling his team out, getting his boys fired up, but then kind of takes a step back and apologizes and says, these guys have never failed me here. So you seem to be backing the dog in this game.
I think St. John's is going to win this game. Now, they're not going to storm the court because, it's number one, it's not on campus. It's at MSG. And number two, you're 2.5-point underdogs. It's Creighton. You're going to storm the court for beating Creighton? No.
So the letdown spot for Creighton that upset UConn earlier this week?
We saw UConn get upset. We saw them respond well yesterday against Villanova. We've seen a lot of these spots where a team coming off a very big win goes on to let down in the next game. Look at yesterday, Washington State took down Arizona on the road. They go to Arizona State, lose that one by double digits as 5.5-point favorites. I think this is going to be a similar spot for Creighton. Coming out east, you got to play St. John's at MSG. St. John's got called out, didn't even respond all that well against Georgetown in only a 5-point win. They need to play well in this game. They're on the bubble tab we're going to be talking about. They're plus 300 to make it. They're probably not going to make it. But if you're going to, you need to win a home game over Creighton to at least put some pressure on the people that make these decisions. St. John's is a good athletic team. Like, Rick Pitino handpicked his guys because they're good. Creighton just shot the lights out at home. They are due to regress a little bit shooting the ball. I think St. John's, what you can control when you get called out by your coach is effort, defense. I think they're going to be all over the ball. Creighton's not going to shoot as well, and I like St. John's plus 2.5 at home.
All right, take me inside Rutgers and Maryland here. These are two teams that have not lived up to expectations this season. Still time, I guess, to make the season memorable. I think in order to make the big dance, like these guys are going to have to win their conference tournament here. But you can generate some positive momentum here coming down the stretch by winning games down the stretch.
Yeah, so both teams are a game above 500. Going to be, these teams are they have tougher paths. They're, middle of the pack in the Big Ten, which hasn't been as great this year. Maryland, 1-5 in their last 6 games. They're 2-6 against the spread in their last 8 games against Rutgers. They're just overall, Maryland doesn't win on the road. They're 4-16 in their last 20 road games, if you want to go back the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they don't win on the road. And then Rutgers at the lovely named Jersey Mike's Arena, which always makes me very hungry during games.
I love Jersey Mike's subs.
That's
not an ad, but could be. Your name could be right here, Jersey Mike's.
There you go. Okay, so Rutgers, they're coming off 2 losses here. At plus 5.5 against Minnesota, they lost and didn't cover. And then they got destroyed by Purdue in an awful spot with Purdue coming off of the Ohio State loss. That was their bounce back spot. Now you got Rutgers coming back home where they have been good this year. They're 10-3 straight up, 7-6 against the spread. But you can get them short enough on the money line here if you want to just play Rutgers money line. Go ahead and fire. So I think Rutgers at home protects home court coming off a couple of losses here. Maryland, we see the Terps continue their trends of just losing on the road in the conference.
Okay, so now we go to FAU and Memphis. Most preseason polls had these two teams winning the American Athletic Conference, but not only is neither team in first place currently, but the teams are unranked as well.
Yeah, Memphis has definitely been the bigger disappointment, whatever word you want to use there. So FAU is just 4-11 against the spread in their last 15 games, though. 10-2 straight up. So essentially they've been winning, not covering. They did win and cover at home in a big game against SMU on Thursday night. That was their bounce back spot. They had a game that essentially could be for the conference at USF and lost by 4. They came storming back, almost won the game, but never really were back into it. So that was their bounce back spot. Now is a little bit more of a level off spot for them. Memphis had been dreadful and got a good blowout win over a good Charlotte team to kind of steady themselves. With both teams coming off a really big win, I trust FAU to just be more consistent, a team we saw go beat Arizona and Vegas earlier in the year. I lean to FAU here. I haven't played it yet, but I think both coming off a big win, that kind of keeps things pretty even in terms of desperation. FAU's the better team.
I mean, if you like the Tigers, though, in this situation, the better value is probably playing them straight up on their home floor, plus 105 odds on the money line, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be hard to gauge at home because they're 11-2 straight up, so they win at home. But they're 3-10 against the spread.
Well, that's what I'm saying, taking them on the money line,
right,
if you liked them.
Well, when it comes to, like, it's priced near a pick 'em. So, like, where they've been priced all year, the market has been off on them. They've just been winning against bad teams, but not covering. So when you bring in a good team in FAU, yes, if you like Memphis, whoever you like in this game, play them on the money line.
Okay.
I do think it's a better spot for FAU.
Anything quickly here with Xavier and Marquette, rematch of last year's Big East tournament title game?
Marquette should roll, but it's a huge game for Xavier, who's on the bubble, if they could get a win like this to get into the field. But we'll touch on a little more college hoops later in the show.
Okay, I love that. Yeah, we're going to break down all the bubble teams as well. Coming up after our first break in this 2-hour program, we are getting after it in the NBA. A big slate today, a beefy slate today, one that includes the Greek Freak. Can they right the ship? Because Doc Rivers appears to be really struggling since taking over there in Milwaukee. All right, before we get into tonight's NBA slate, it's a friendly reminder here. We had a nice story this weekend to remind everybody, you know, we really love fantasy football here at DraftKings, all kinds of fantasy football, and apparently so do the Toronto Blue Jays, right? This is why, though, folks, you play DFS each week. not only for the payouts at DK, but no last place punishments. Like Blue Jays pitcher Tim Meza apparently went 4-10 in the Jays Fantasy Football League last season, and his punishment had to be bat boy for a game. It happens to the best of us, right, Julian? Like, you can have all the football knowledge in the world, and sometimes the season just doesn't play out like you want it, Jules.
This is why we love DFS. Every week's a new week. Oh,
yeah.
God, I didn't know that was coming up on the
Yeah,
screen.
Jules. Oh, wow.
Players get
Surprise,
hurt.
surprise. Just like you, Jules, for example. You give out great bets. You give out great DFS analysis. But still last place in a season-long fantasy league.
Well,
wow, look at that, 6-9. You scored less points than Samir. 6-9. That's not nice, Julian.
Yeah, 6-9 is better than 4-10.
What happened, Julian?
Why is Drew 7-8 below another 6-9 team? But
well, that's math, and that's tough.
What happened is producer Drew says that's a good question. Not great mathing on the screen there, but
can you explain to us what the hell happened to you here?
Yeah, my guys got hurt. That's why season long stinks, and that's why you play on DraftKings and play DFS and make money every week.
So
I also just stopped, this is the excuse, everybody. I don't want to whine, but I just stopped looking at my team because I don't care.
See, you're the worst kind of person to have in fantasy leagues. I care about it, and there was a midpoint of the season, you were like, I'm making a push here, dude. I'm coming for that ass. And I said, no, you're not. You're going to the bottom dwelling cellar.
You're pointing at the NBA slate now.
Anywho, Dino won the league. I get to brew a beer that is named after my dogs, and Dino has to pick the punishment out for you. But Dino's not talking to us right now.
He said he loves us.
Oh, okay, never mind. He does love us.
Vitamin C Brewing. Look forward to Emerson's beer and my punishment.
Okay, I can't wait for that.
That was fun. Thanks, guys.
All right, so now we can dish out some money-making bets around the NBA. And today's NBA slate is fantastic. Take it from me. I've been talking to Jules about it. First game of the day, Bucks at the 76ers. We know that the Bucks just went out and beat the Timberwolves, I believe. So another win there since Doc Rivers has taken over. He hasn't had many of them. A couple other big games. Mavs and the Pacers. We know the futures bets, right, that you have on the Mavs. What else do we have on this first screen? Okay, Clippers are those should be able to take care of business against the Kings. Right here, you look at those 6 games that we just punched up. Your top bet among those 6 games is what?
All right, so I bet 2 of these games actually evenly. So I laid 4.5 last night with the Bucks. I think it's 5.5 now. That's fine. They've beaten Philly 4 of the last 5 times that they've matched up in Philly. The Sixers are 1-7 against the spread in their last 8 games at home. They've survived in years past without Joel Embiid. They are not this year. They're on a 5-11 ATS run overall, 4-10 straight up in their last 14 games. Philly just isn't playing well. They're coming off a good win over the Cavs, so maybe they're a little overpriced in this game. Now, Milwaukee's coming off a big win too, but there's more pressure on the Bucks to keep their foot on the gas coming out of the break and string together some wins here when Doc Rivers starts his Bucks tenure going 3-7. So I think Philly's in maybe a more of an understandable spot to slide, whereas the Bucks need to pick things up, show that they can get some momentum coming out of the break if they want to be taken seriously as one of the contenders in the Eastern Conference. So
Philly has covered the spread in 3 of its last 4 matchups with Milwaukee. I don't know if that means anything, but I'm sure also Joel Embiid was probably part of most of those games.
Most of them, yeah.
Okay, what's another bet? What's another bet you had? You said you had 2 between the 6 games here.
Mavericks money line in Indy. I did play Dallas here. So I think the Mavs they're in a good spot. We talked about them yesterday to win the division on the show. And they've been a good road team all season. They opened up larger dogs here and have shifted, are underdogs overall, and have shifted to a short favorite. Away from home, Dallas is 15-10. They're 16-9 ATS on the road, so they've done well against expectations.
3-0 last 3 road games. They've won 7 straight, right?
7 straight. Only the Celtics have won more in a row. They're 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 road games. They're on a 6-1 ATS run overall. They're playing very well, and it looks like for the most part everybody's going to be in for Dallas. Nothing terrible to say about Indy. They've won a couple games. They won their first game out of the break against Detroit. They went into the break on a win over Toronto. But Indy is definitely Sloan, and I think Dallas is picking up some pace here.
You know, here, how about this trend, though, in terms of, like, the total for this game? Would you almost lean under? Do we have it still punched up? Yeah, we do. So what is it?
253 and a half.
253 and a half. Because the under is hit in 3 consecutive games for the Mavs. Is 7-3 in their last 10. For Indiana, the under is 5-2 in its last 7 overall. And even hit in its last outing here.
Yeah, it's a big number, too.
Yeah.
Anytime you hang a 253 on the board, second game out of the All-Star break, Sunday game.
Right, Sunday. Everyone's relaxing. Everyone went to church in the morning. You're full with brunch and all that delicious
Definitely.
stuff.
They just stuffed their faces with brunch and went to
you would
church
lean
this
under
morning.
because I've made some incredible points.
Yeah.
More games on tap today. You know what those include? We've got the Lakers and the Suns. That is at 3:30. That is going to be absolutely smoking hot. And then the Nuggets at the Warriors tonight at 7 o'clock. I'd say are the 2 biggest games on your screen right now. Which bets have you placed? Which bets would you consider placing when we look at these 5 games here, Jules?
So I went Warriors, even money on the money line. I think it's moved a tiny bit. Yeah, it's a pick now, -110 each way. Golden State's just playing really well. I bet them that first game out against the Lakers. No LeBron, that obviously makes a difference. But 8-1 straight up, 8-1 against the spread in their last 9 games. Since the tragedy of the assistant coach passing away and they went on pause, I believe they're 11-4 with 2 one-point losses. So they're playing really well. They've picked up the pace at home. Getting Kuminga involved more has been good for them. Moving Clay to the bench has been good for them. Draymond not losing his mind has been good for them. And then you have Denver, who has beaten Golden State 6 in a row. So Denver matches up well with Golden State. You could argue the other side that Golden State's just due here. Jokic is going to be a huge matchup issue. But other than that, I really like the spot for Golden State. You got Murray dinged up. You got KCP dinged up, both for Denver. I think this is a spot that the Warriors keep rolling. It means a lot more to them in this game at home than it does to Denver.
What interest do you have in Lakers at the Suns? Another fun, interesting fact/trend that I have discovered in my hours of research here is Lakers road games have been one of the most profitable bets on the over this season. 20 of 29 cashing on that bet, Jules.
Wow, you're a real.
I'm a real guy.
You are. You're a real total.
I'm
today,
big on the total now, dude. All right, I'm a total dude now.
Okay, so the Lakers lost that game, as I mentioned, to Golden State. Bounced back with a nice win over San Antonio. They've won 4 of their last 5. They're playing pretty well, and they've won 5 of 6 against Phoenix specifically. I would lean to taking points here with the Lakers. The Suns have not been playing well out of the break. They lost to Dallas and Houston. But they've been a lot better at home. They've won, 7 in a row? Yeah, 7 in a row at home. Could set up a nice bounce back spot for them. So I have talked myself into both sides of this one, which means I'll ultimately probably pass. The game probably means more to the Suns because of the 2 losses. Yeah. They've been really good at home. So I lean to the Suns bouncing back. But I gave you some points on the Lakers too, so I won't fit the game.
And we discussed it a little bit on Saturday's edition of The Sweat, and in terms of NBA Western Conference seeding for number 1 seed here, you have 3 of the top 4 teams on the odds board, Jules, are in action today. The Thunder, plus 205, co-favorites with the Timberwolves to lock in that number 1 seed in the West. There's the Clippers at plus 340, and then the odds for the Nuggets to claim that number 1 seed in the West, plus 370 right now.
Yeah, I said yesterday Clippers would be my bet, but it's not something I'm going to bet. They're all within a game and a half or so of each other.
Yeah, so today could be big in terms of this race for the top seed.
They're all going to be big. Yeah. The question really becomes, do OKC and Minnesota fade it all due to the lack of experience, and do the Clippers and Nuggets stay healthy enough to make the push that they need to make to get that top seed? So I think the Clippers are the best team. So that's as simplified as the handicap can be. I would go to the Clippers because they're the best team, but they have to stay healthy. That's obvious. So that's where I would look in terms of that. I'll give you one other to maybe look at. Okay. We got that Pelicans-Bulls game. Pelicans are 18-9-1 first half ATS at home this season. Bulls get off to some of the slowest starts in the NBA. So New Orleans can lay a couple points with them first half. I don't mind that.
Stephen A. was giving Zion a bunch of crap this week for his love of McDonald's and food
Twitter
in general.
was also giving Stephen A. a bunch of crap.
Yeah, that was hilarious. They did like a highlight reel of this.
1.5 points per game, 1 assist per game.
Yeah, no, hey, listen, that's more than you and I combined, big man. After the break, folks, we're going to head over to the Diamond, a new face, well, a familiar face in a new place with Sho Otani. Where does he land atop the DFS rankings for our analysts? Well, probably at the top. So yesterday on this potentially award-winning program, we brought you some big beefy futures bets around the diamond. Today, we will be doing something similar. But on the DFS side, Nick Fryer, Gary and Thorne, show your beautiful faces. Thank you. One of my favorite duos from the DK Network. They have returned to lend a hand. So a lot of movement offensively, right, this offseason here, guys. Headlined by the likes of Sho Otani, Juan Soto, Teoscar Hernandez, and more. I want you to tell me, Nick Fryer, which familiar face in a new place could be the biggest offensive play and have the biggest impact in the 2024 DFS season?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to new guys and new places, it feels like there's just an easy, cheap answer. And I'm going to take that route with Juan Soto because you're putting a left-handed bat in Yankee Stadium. It is a crackerjack box. I say it all the time, and I will continue to say it until they get a new stadium again, because it is an absolute joke. And this is a great move for the Yankees, a total no-brainer to add this guy. And now you have him protected much better than you did in San Diego. As much as they had talent around him, obviously San Diego has become a hot mess despite all the talent that they have. But now you put him in a lineup with Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton, which I get it. You know, Giancarlo Stanton goes up and down and whatever. But Juan Soto, man, you put him in that new stadium, you give him a little bit better protection. I think he's going to go nuts this year.
Who do you think is going to go nuts, Gare Bear?
I mean, the other pretty obvious one I guess we have to talk about is Shohei Otani.
No! Just kidding.
Wow. About Otani, it stinks that we're not going to see him as a two-way player this season, but I don't know, the fact that he's just guaranteed to be ready for opening day. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, but the sort of uncertainty and unclarity about what exactly was going on with his injury and whether or not he'd be ready for opening day in either capacity, like, it was so hush-hush. People just weren't talking about it all that much. And the fact he's going to be ready to go, the fact that he's just locked into a hitting role. I mean, this is someone who, while pulling double duty, was still putting up some of the best expected stats of any hitter in baseball. And now suddenly he's going to get to do that just focusing primarily as a hitter and being surrounded by more options in a deeper lineup than he's ever had before. I mean, you know, in terms of new faces and new places that could have a huge impact, I know you mentioned Teoscar Hernandez, and I know he's not someone who we consider to be like, you know, this superstar level hitter, but this is someone who is a multiple time Silver Slugger award winner who could suddenly just be hitting behind Shohei Otani, Freddie Freeman, and Mookie Betts. Like, he could have 120 RBI this season. That's how crazy this Dodgers lineup is.
And I know we talked to Jared Carabas on this show last week, and he said he didn't actually hate Otani to lead the majors in home runs on the DK Sportsbook. I know we're talking mainly DFS right now. It's plus 900, just because of the point you made, Gary, of him just being locked in on one thing and one thing only all season long. Pitching, yes, we're not going to see Shohei Otani doing it, but pitching is a priority this year with several big names still awaiting a landing spot. So we're talking Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery here. Are these the type of guys you're going to be targeting for pitching, Garion, or will a newcomer such as like Yamamoto there in LA, just a team that absolutely is stacked, be the best arm to roster in 2024?
I mean, it depends. You know, someone like Yamamoto is interesting just because sometimes we do see the pricing algorithm kind of lag behind slightly. So, you know, he could be a little underpriced his first couple of starts. That would definitely pique my interest, although we have to see those strikeout numbers and those whiff rates translate from Japan to the majors. And sometimes there is a little lacking there. I think when you're talking about just the best starters in baseball, Spencer Strider kind of speaks for himself. He's like in a category of his own. It's really just about, can he stay healthy? Can a guy who hits triple digits as much as he does, can you trust him start to stay healthy? You know, I would say someone like Kevin Gausman's really interesting. I mean, just in terms of doing it season after season, start after start from a consistency standpoint. You know, you go back to 2021, this is someone who has the 5th most starts in baseball, the 3rd most strikeouts. He's got the 2nd best FIP at 2.79. I mean, that splitter really does damage. And when we're talking DFS and starting pitching, we are always talking about strikeouts. So I think that caliber of guy, the Striders, the Gausmans, that's really where you want to go if you're looking for the best of the best.
Nick, which pitcher right now is on your DFS radar?
Yeah, I mean, Garion's right about Gausman, but it's also convenient he brings up his Blue Jays ace. Not surprising there. I think Garrett Cole is another guy who you have to throw into that conversation too, because he's a perennial strikeout pitcher, obviously coming off a pretty darn good year. But then in the end, I think Spencer Strider is close to what Nikola Jokic has been in the NBA in terms of DFS as you're gonna get from on the MLB side, just because his strikeout potential is next level. I mean, what last year was 282 in 180 something innings, and the next closest guy was like 44 strikeouts off the pace. It's not even close. So again, this is a guy who you don't need to have him go the entire season to be valuable for you night in and night out. Of course, you want him to go the entire season, especially if you think he's going to win the Cy Young. But again, like when we talk about fatigue, I know later on in the year, his ERA didn't look all that great, but then he also turned out a 2.62 FIP. So that's telling me, listen, like there's other things that are happening that maybe a little bit out of his control on balls in play, but he's still generating strikeouts and managing walks. So I absolutely love this guy. In double-digit strikeouts in a third of his games last season, and then another third of his games, he had 9 strikeouts. You're not getting that type of consistency from anybody else in the league.
Well, Fryer, which guys flying under the radar would you consider, I guess, a guy who could start out a little underpriced and eventually shoot up salary boards here, provide unforeseen value to their teams and DFS lineups?
I'm actually going to go with the pitcher route here instead of a hitter route here, because I do think this is going to be a big year for Bryan Beo in Boston. Obviously, he looked great in his first 14 starts of 2023, and this was his first full season. Not as good, the rest of the season, 15 to 28, but he still had 7 quality starts in that 14-game stretch. And I know, again, he struggled to start his MLB career in 2022, but he closed that season out with a strong month of September. Then we see him go and put out a good half of the first full season in 2023. Just looking at his stuff, the kid is so smooth and effortless. Like, not to compare him too much to Spencer Strider, but that's another guy who throws gas, throws a little bit harder, obviously has better stuff, but very effortless. I look at Bryan Beo and I get similar vibes. I don't think he's going to turn into Spencer Strider. Necessarily doesn't have the same strikeout ability to the same degree, but still, in terms of like what he can do night in and night out and be consistent and provide some great stuff and have a devastating changeup, I think we're going to see him take a big step this year.
Gary, and who are you thinking here?
I mean, this is kind of cheating, but I do think it's important to remind people of this little quirk as we head into MLB season. But how many times have we come on here the last couple of years?
Yeah.
And when we talk about value hitters or value pitchers for that matter, we end up talking about top prospect X, who for some reason is priced at 2K, and it lasts longer than you think. I mean, I go back to the 2021 season where Julio Rodriguez was like below 3K for, I think, the first full month of the season. This stuff happens. I mean, the algorithm, I'll give it credit. It's been sharper during NBA season than I remember in the past. Maybe that'll be the case during MLB season. But someone like Jackson Holliday, who is currently the top prospect in all of baseball, someone who I don't think is going to break camp with the Orioles. So when he's eventually called up in late April or early May, and he's priced at 2.5K, you're going to have to get this guy into a lineup. I know he's only had 255 plate appearances above single A in his entire career. I know he's 20 years old, and some of the projection systems don't actually like him that much in his rookie season, but he is the odds-on favorite for AL Rookie of the Year for a reason. This Orioles lineup's pretty good. I just think there's that quirk, and it'll remain. So just keep an eye out for all those top prospects making their debuts. They're always a cheat code.
Gary, and I know how much you love the Dodgers. You've already made that clear throughout yesterday's segment and this one as well. But which team will be primed for stacking besides the Dodgers? Because that's an easy answer, Bucko.
Are you making a Pirates reference? Are we talking about the Pirates?
No. Go ahead.
Look, I think...
You sure about that?
Yeah.
I don't know. You said Bucko. I don't know. I think this is kind of fun. I just talked about Jackson Holliday, and I think he strengthens this lineup when he gets here. He probably won't be here when this is happening. But let's take everyone back to last season when the Tampa Bay Rays were averaging like 13 runs a game for the first month and a half of the season. A big reason for that was how easy their schedule was. Here is who the Orioles play to start the season: the Angels, the Royals, the Pirates, the Red Sox, the Brewers, the Twins, the Royals again, the Angels again, and then the Oakland Athletics. They're going to get to face some really, really easy pitching. And aside from like your Gunnar Hendersons and your Adley Rutschmans of the world, this team was consistently underpriced last season. So I think much like the Rays last year, you are going to see an Orioles lineup that, one, has some platoon bats that you can kind of put in and out at value. I mean, Ryan O'Hearn might hit cleanup against right-handed pitching, and he's usually less than 4K. I just think they're going to put up some serious runs to start the season. So you're going to want to hop on that bandwagon early.
Brian, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Oh boy.
We're running time on time.
Yeah, I think Baltimore is a great call out, but I also really like the Rangers. How can you not after the year that they had? Of course, you're not going to have Corey Seager to start the season, but I mean, you still have Marcus Semien, Adolis Garcia. Then you got Josh Young, Nathaniel Lowe, Evan Carter, and I love Leody Tavares. If I had more time, I'd talk just about him. And then Ezekiel Duran's still hanging around. And then you got a couple young guys in Wyatt Langford and Justin Foscue. I mean, you have so many guys, and you have a ton of value still in that lineup. And I'm not even talking about Heim, who could be a good catcher to add once in a while as well. So a lot of options there in Texas lineup.
Gentlemen, it was so damn good to see your faces back on the sweat this weekend. We have more faces standing by, like Pierce Dietrich, because Rubbin is racing another super speedway on the NASCAR circuit, taking us to Hotlanta and which drivers to back this afternoon. Rubbin is racing, baby. The green flag has dropped on the NASCAR season, and we're dishing out more best bets and DFS plays right meow with one of my best friends, Pierce Dietrich. Pierce, good morning. First, I would like to apologize for bullying you yesterday in our text conversation. You weren't answering me because you were volunteering at the Ronald McDonald House, so I'm sorry, and thank you for your service.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Well, I am happy you are here. Before we get to Atlanta, before we get to today, that was another dramatic finish, right? At Daytona last week, a Monday finish, biggest win of William Byron's career. The Great American Race, it's become more and more of a crapshoot, it feels like, lately. So how'd you like the way everything played out, bud?
Yeah, the finish at the end was pretty exciting to see a bunch of cars wreck and see it come down to the wire. But overall, it really wasn't the best Daytona 500 from a lot of people's perspective. And the problem was fuel saving mode was basically happening from lap number 2. And we expect a little bit more carnage in that race and just a little bit more racing in that race. But when everybody's saving fuel and running 70%, they don't wreck very often. You know, in real life, when people drive the speed limit, you don't tend to wreck. So they pushed it to the end, and we got some wrecks at the end. But overall, they might need to do something about that in the future.
Yeah, screw saving fuel. We want to see metal smashing around the track, you know? Was that the reason it was such a clean race, you think? Because they're not, like, going full throttle?
Yep, that was absolutely it.
Oh, my God. Grow up, guys. Well, we've got ourselves a second straight super speedway race here to start the season. I love it. I think fans love this. I don't know if drivers necessarily do, Pierce. What can you take from what just went down then in Daytona super speedway and use it to help you build a positive betting card? Or not all super speedways created equally?
Yeah, they're not all created equally. This is definitely a different super speedway, and I am a little worried, at least if you're expecting carnage and wrecks and some of the long shots to come through. The teams and drivers demonstrated last week that they'll play strategy and that they'll play it safe. In Atlanta, it's not as easy to run two side-by-side lanes. It's much easier to be safe and run one just giant single file snake around the track and slowly turn laps. I'm afraid that we might see, the majority of this race, if not 3/4 or more, just a single file, follow the leader type of race. And then maybe they try to make some pushes at the end. So, last week it was pretty tame, and I think we're going to have another tame one. But again, in the end, we could get that massive carnage, and it could open the door for some long shots in DFS and in sports betting.
But in general, you like back-to-back super speedways to start the season?
I do. Like from the team's perspective, it's nice to have the same setup to roll over the next week, and also logistically to go from Florida to Georgia, not a big deal. And then if you think for new fans and casual fans, this is a alluring and appealing type of racing, so I think it's going to draw them in. So I don't mind it.
All right, so for new fans, casual fans, maybe watching right now, Hendrick Motorsports would love another 1-2 finish today. And would you look at this? Hendrick has won 3 of the 4 races at Atlanta since the track was newly configured, like a super speedway here, Pierce. 2 of those wins were by William Byron. What do you know? Last week's Daytona 500 winner here. How do you like his chances to visit the winner's circle again? 3rd best odds on the board.
Yeah, on top of that, he also has a Daytona summer win. So he's been pretty strong at the super speedways. He's incredibly hot at Atlanta. He won last week. I think he's got as good of a chance as anyone. But again, if we put those numbers on a different track where there's a lot more skill, a lot less luck, you would be really high on William Byron. But given this is a super speedway, he has had a ton of success here. But really, the playing field is so even and level. I mean, you look at the last year's spring race at Atlanta, Joey Logano makes a pass on the last lap to take the lead, kind of almost out of nowhere. And, William Byron could have a really good race, and just the last lap doesn't go his way because the cars are all so packed together. He has as good a chance as anybody. You like what he's done, but I don't think it's somewhere I would want to go.
Yeah, so it looks like he's going to be starting 11, which is why he's dropped down the odds boards there, plus 1,300 now. He does have 11 victories, though, Pierce, through his first 217 starts. Can you put that in perspective? Like, is that really good?
Byron's always been, the next great thing. He was great in the Truck Series. He was great in the Xfinity Series, winning a championship. Maybe he got rushed up to Cup a little bit too early, but I think it was fine. And he's Jimmy Johnson's neighbor as a kid.
That's cheating.
Wizard. Yeah, so it's all pretty much been there his whole career.
Yeah.
This has been expected. Probably should have won the championship last year. Came up a little bit short. This could be his year.
That's like living next to Tiger Woods, and people are like, man, how are you such a good golfer? Yeah, you should meet my neighbor. We talked last week here, Pierce, about long shots kind of being an option at Daytona. How far down the board, then, are you willing to go on the DK Sportsbook in Atlanta?
I'll go all the way down. It's a little bit more dicey. It's an easier play at Daytona or Talladega, where we typically get more wrecks, but it can still happen here at Atlanta. You look at yesterday's Xfinity race, you had cars running out of fuel in the last 2 laps, and we almost got a long shot winner. Stenhouse at plus 5,000, several super speedway wins. John Hunter Nemechek at plus 7,000. He's won the Xfinity Series at Atlanta. He raced here yesterday. Didn't go very well for him, but he got that experience. Noah Gragson, a previous super speedway winner. And then even Todd Gilliland at plus 5,000, typically not someone I really go to at super speedways, but the last 2 weeks, Front Row Motorsports has shown a lot of speed. His teammate Michael McDowell's on the pole, and Gilliland's just a couple spots back from him. So if he maintains track position throughout the entire race, maybe makes a push at the end, kind of a sneaky play with Todd Gilliland.
All right, so now I need you to take me inside DK Sportsbook even further and some driver props here. What do you have your eye on? Matchups, maybe group winner, team props are there as well?
I'd much rather go with the straight win picks at the super speedway, but if I had to pick on a prop bet, then I would look at Kyle Busch over Martin Truex Jr. Martin Truex Jr. has been one of the most unluckiest super speedway racers of all time, if not the most unlucky. He just does not finish these races. Meanwhile, Kyle Busch, since he switched over to RCR and joined up with crew chief Randall Burnett, 5 of his 7 super speedway races, he's got top 10s. And that includes a win. So top 10s at Atlanta. I think Busch is definitely the play.
Yeah, Busch minus 135 and that head-to-head matchup prop on the DK Sportsbook. Martin Truex Jr. even money plus 100. How does your roster strategy work on DraftKings? Talking DFS here for a super speedway race.
Yeah, as always, we're going to chase players in the back. You can take the value. It's going to be a little bit more riskier than like a Daytona or Talladega, but we have seen optimal lineups at Atlanta in the past with value drivers surviving some of the carnage. But even if there isn't carnage, everyone's going to hang on the lead lap. Everyone's got a chance in the draft. So you can take the cheapies in the back, but there's also several really decent drivers starting in the back because they didn't have practice this week. So some teams missed the qualifying setup. And so by the time we get the race rolling, you're going to have some good cars that are going to make their way forward. So I'm targeting a lot of the strong drivers in the back, the value in the back, and you may also want to consider a lap leader, especially if this turns into another lap turning event and a team event like Logano possibly starting up front. Logano scored 84 fantasy points last year by leading a bunch of laps in a lap turner at Atlanta.
Okay, so he's starting second today. He happens, talking Logano, and he happens to be one of 4 drivers that'll cost you at least 10 grand. I know you just said you're going to look deeper down in DFS salaries here, but if I said, okay, you have to pay for one of the 4 guys that'll cost you at least 10 grand, who's it going to be and why is it Logano?
No, and I think you're right. You do have to pay for one of these guys. If we look at previous Atlanta races, we are going to see one driver leading a lot of laps, and Logano seems to be the guy that absolutely fits that mold. He's done it before, as I mentioned, had a big spring race and won here last season. The Fords are looking pretty fast last week at Daytona. They're looking again fast here at Atlanta. So I just don't see a winning lineup that doesn't feature a driver that leads a bunch of laps. You can chase place differential in the back, but I think you're going to need to spend up probably with this 10K range for a driver that's going to lead a lot of laps.
Yeah.
Blaney would be my next guy. I don't know if I trust Hamlin and Byron to get the laps but Logano would be at the top of the list.
Yeah, Blaney in 6th spot, Byron 11. I mean, Chase Elliott's $200 behind 9,800, but he's starting 28th here. So we'll get you out of here with this. Who is your value pick du jour for Atlanta?
For value, I'm going to go back to the back, and I think any of those drivers are going to work, but the one that I find most appealing is the guy that I mentioned earlier, John Hunter Nemechek. He has enough car, he has enough experience. He won here at Atlanta in the Xfinity Series, starting way in the back. He can definitely move into the top 20 and be in the winning lineup.
Okay, so anyone else who wants to do some research before today's race, they can find your work over on DraftKingsNetwork.com. Thanks, Pierce. Appreciate you. You are a great human being. Unfortunately, we got to take a break. Julian will return to blow some bubbles. Which NCAA team's on the bubble? He's betting to make the big dance when the sweat returns. Ladies and gentlemen, we are kicking off the second and final hour of The Sweat here on DraftKings Network and VSiN. We bring you this show every weekend, Saturday and Sunday morning from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Jules, myself, Steve Buchanan, smorgasbord of analysts here. Jules, big basketball guy, NBA, but also NCAA basketball. And it is time now to blow some bubbles. You ready to rock, big man?
I'll do my best.
Yeah, we know you will. We know you will, all right. All right, so we're talking teams here, potentially on the NCAA tournament bubble. And there is a tab on the DK Sportsbook in which you can bet some of these teams to make the big dance, and then some of these teams to not make the big dance. Now, the ones that you can bet right now on the DK Sportsbook are the ones in action today. There were a bunch yesterday there. Those have been taken off the board because those teams have played already. So anywho, let's start with Wake Forest. And we discussed them a little bit earlier at the top of the show here. Big win yesterday over Duke.
Yeah, so Wake is off the board right now because of the game yesterday.
Yes.
But they were minus 235 on the yes when they came off the board
make
yesterday.
the tournament.
So, in beating Duke, a top 10 win at home, you have most likely secured your spot there. You see they've got a big win over Florida early in the year. They don't have a terrible loss. FSU's the bad loss, but you go back earlier in the year, like, they don't have really bad losses. They've been a really solid team, and what they have working for them, they rank high in KenPom. They rank high in all these metrics. They have a stud in Salas that they got from Gonzaga. So, Wake at this point was a team that you had to really lay some juice on to get in entering yesterday. And now with that top 10 win over Duke, they're really going to have to spiral if they're not going to make the tournament.
What about Villanova?
So Villanova's a really interesting one. They entered yesterday minus 140 on the yes, plus 110 on the no. And they got smoked by UConn, which is expected. That shouldn't really change the price much. Now, we had Reegs from Barstool on yesterday, who really knows his college hoops. He said maybe bet Villanova on the yes. I actually disagree with him there. I think Villanova is probably a no. And here's why. You saw the screen there. Villanova has some dreadful losses to begin the season. And I know it was a long time ago, and they've shown a high ceiling in some of their wins, but you got to balance the season evenly. And if we go back there, you do all those games in Philly earlier in the year. Villanova came completely undone. They lost to Penn by 4. They lost to St. Joe's by double digits. They lost to Drexel. You can't lose all those games.
You can't lose to
and
Drexel.
Get in. So, they kind of needed a massive win over a team like UConn last night if they were going to be on the right side of the bubble. They've got some key games coming up. They have a nice bounce-back spot against Georgetown. That's a bounce-back spot for everybody. But they play Providence and Seton Hall, 2 bubble teams, and then get a ranked shot at Creighton at home. If they can win out, you can get in, but we're kind of betting on them not doing that by betting the no. I just think and I really like Villanova as a team, talent-wise. I think if you put them in the field, they can get a big win, but those losses that they took earlier in the season have to weigh on them.
What's the situation with Drake? You think this is going to be a team that ends up dancing?
So I'm going to lump Drake and Indiana State together here because they're both in the Mountain Missouri Valley Conference.
Did you tell Bailey to do that for graphic purposes?
Well, no, yeah, we're going to start with Drake. We'll go to Indiana State next. We'll do separate graphics. All right, they're both in the Missouri Valley Conference. They both have head-to-head wins against each other. So their key win, Drake's is over Indiana State. Indiana State's is over Drake's. Indiana State has been ranked recently, so I looked at them. They closed a pick, minus 115 each way on Indiana State, whereas Drake is the dog at plus 165 to make it and minus 210 no. So if these two teams are pretty even and Indiana State's getting all the headlines, I would maybe look at betting Drake, yes, at plus 165. And they lost yesterday, took a bad loss to UNI, so you're going to get a better price. Now they're maybe more like plus 200 when they come back up. Essentially, you're betting who's going to win the conference tournament here between the two, and we can just go to Indiana State.
Yeah,
now,
go ahead, because they had a pretty terrible week of results, didn't they?
Indiana State has been fine recently. Let's see, 2 weeks or so ago, they lost to Southern Illinois and Illinois State back-to-back, which were really bad losses. So they've come undone a little bit. That's why I'm saying maybe Drake is the look here, but I'll bet one of those two to win the conference tournament, and whoever does get it is going to get in, and I don't think the other does. So it's almost a way to get the field if you wanted to take like Indiana State minus 115, no, although you're opening yourself up to the risk of them getting in that large bid if they don't win the conference tournament.
Okay, and then in terms of Butler, and it's great on DraftKingsNetwork.com, folks, there's a nice little write-up here about Bubble Watch, who's in, who's out right now. So if all of the words that Julian is spitting off right now don't really sit with you, you can go on and read it and absorb them more. So right now we are talking Butler. Butler just lost to Seton Hall. They got smoked 76-54 here. So they were on the outside really looking at heading into yesterday. And now they appear to be even more on the outside looking in.
Yeah, tough loss, huge bubble game, both teams on the bubble. They have good wins. Creighton and Marquette, those are good wins for Butler. They don't have any bad losses. I put, I wouldn't say bad, I would say key losses there. Like, St. John's is probably not going to get in. They lost to St. John's. The loss to Seton Hall is a bad loss because they really could have benefited from winning it, but none of these are like, they have like the losses Villanova has. Villanova has 3, let's use the word bad there, bad losses, not key, bad. These were just more key losses in games that could have really helped them when it comes to Butler. Butler might be worth a crack.
Really? Because
they closed because they don't have a bad loss and they have really good two key big victories.
Would you say they're in a position though that they're going to have to win the Big East tournament outright to make the big dance at this point?
And they're not doing that because UConn's going to do that. But plus 145, yes, and they get smoked by Seton Hall yesterday. What are they going to come back? Plus 175? And we talked about Seton Hall on the show yesterday. I wish I bet them. I didn't.
Okay, yeah.
Leaned that way. But like, look at Butler's schedule. They haven't done anything terrible. They did lose to Villanova. At Villanova, there's another key bubble loss. But like, they've been losing lately, but none of them are bad. And again, I get it. You got to win games to get in. But a 1-point win against Creighton on the road. They beat Marquette at Marquette. They've played UConn tight every time they played UConn. If they can, again, it's going to come down to the rest of the schedule. They play St. John's, DePaul, they should smoke, and they play Xavier. Xavier and St. John's are fringe teams. If they can win both of those and maybe upset somebody at MSG in the Big East tournament,
okay.
I'm not saying no on Butler. I'm very pleasantly surprised with Butler.
How does your opinion change on Seton Hall after yesterday's win over said Butler? Because Seton Hall owns wins over Connecticut and Marquette, right?
Seton Hall should be in.
All right.
I wish I bet Seton Hall yesterday. I wish I bet Seton
you
Hall
did
to get
too,
in
man.
yesterday. They were even money on the yes, minus 130 on the no. You get a home win over Butler. That shouldn't move you too much. But
correct me if I'm wrong, like for some bubble teams now that has like quality wins, like accumulating just more wins at this point is the most important thing. It kind of goes back
winning
to
games gets you in, losing games gets you out.
But I'm saying it's like some of these teams may have wins that are on the bubble, but their quality wins aren't so great. Some of these teams, like you just mentioned, Butler has quality wins. You just need more wins.
Seton Hall has more quality because, like you said, they're one of
Bingo.
a few teams that can say that they beat UConn this year. So they have the UConn win, they have the Marquette win. They don't really have a terrible loss on there, I don't think. You look, and they've also beat a lot of these other fringe bubble teams, and they beat UConn by 15. By the way, that's pretty impressive. I guess a Rutgers loss, not that great. USC, not that great, but going through the list here, and they did lose to Providence too, which is another bubble one. But they smoked Xavier. They did get smoked by Villanova, so I guess they're losing to some fringe teams. But you look at the rest of the way for Seton Hall, and going to Creighton is probably a letdown spot. They're probably going to lose that game on Wednesday. They get another crack at UConn on Saturday. That's going to be a revenge spot for UConn, so they might be about to drop 2 in a row here. And then they close with Nova and DePaul. So if I'm betting Seton Hall, I'm going to wait and anticipate that they're going to go 0-2 on this road trip to Creighton and UConn, and then come back and bet them when it's plus money, hopefully again.
What's the issue with the Friars? Just because you brought up Providence just now, what's the issue with them? Because they had that dramatic win over Creighton. They did have kind of lost momentum with a tough loss to Butler there. The fact that they're 3-7 away from home probably isn't great.
Yeah, their road record kills them every year, and they're very good at home. That's the way Providence has been for a while. They lost at Butler. They lost at Villanova. But they don't really have any backbreakers. Kansas State isn't very good. They lost to Kansas State earlier in the year. They got a big home win over Marquette. They have a big game. They do get a crack at UConn. If they could beat UConn in the regular season finale, which is in Providence, that's probably a game I'm going to be taking the points with Providence. I don't think they can necessarily win, but I'll take the points with them.
Okay.
Their next, and they play at Marquette. I don't think they'll get that one. I like them at home better. But they host Villanova. That's a huge bubble game for the Friars.
Anything you'd like to add about Gonzaga right now, the team that beat Kentucky a few weeks ago on your 5-unit bet?
Stupid Gonzaga. I cannot believe they won that game at Kentucky. Gonzaga stinks. Kentucky's the real deal. But we have Gonzaga. Gonzaga closed. Why can I not find them now? And we're running out of time in the segment. Gonzaga closed like minus 300, minus 310 to make it, and won last night. Got revenge against Santa Clara. I'm not convinced they're that good. And they still play St. Mary's. If they can beat St. Mary's at St. Mary's, then they're in. But if they lose that game and they get upset in the West Coast Conference Tournament, watch out. And if they do make it, I'll fade them because they stink.
Oh, wow, so passionate today. Well, Sid the Kid, he's going to be passionate tonight taking on the Flyers. Penguins have won 7 of their last 10 matchups against Philly. Is Jeff backing them tonight? Let's discuss. 7 games on this Sunday Funday NHL slate, and there's one man who can hopefully help you navigate them successfully on the DK Sportsbook. He goes by the name Jeff Ulrich. What's up, big man? Not a great night last night for our Oilers, dude.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up and starting the show off on a negative note. But
Listen,
it's true. It was not a good night. It was not a good start. The Oilers have goaltending problems. They need to address it. I've said it a million times on the show. Said it a million times.
I know, but at least we have Connor McDavid, right? It's okay.
Yes.
It's going to be all right.
For at least another year. He's trapped.
This is a best player.
Just like my wife.
Best player who's never going to win a cup as long as he's in Edmonton. Hey, speaking of yesterday, though, dude, Leaves, Avs, all this talk about Austin Matthews and Nathan McKinnon. But it was Tyler Bertuzzi delivering the historic birthday hat trick. First player in Toronto history to tickle the twine 3 times on the anniversary of his birth. By the way, dude, the Leafs have won 7 straight for the first time since the 03-04 season. Where is this Toronto surge coming from, dude? I feel like we got to really start taking these guys seriously here.
Oh yeah, no, they're definitely sucking everyone in. I mean, it's the Toronto media, the Canadians, and is this going to be the year a Canadian team wins the Stanley Cup? Is obviously first it was the Oilers, now it's the Leafs. I mean, look, it's coming from within. I mean, they've always had a good core. I think a lot of people expected Toronto to be a pretty damn good team, not only this year but like a couple years ago as well. So I think it's coming to fruition. This is a team that I think can compete with the top teams in the East. I mean, you look at the East, Boston obviously losing the top center. I think Florida's a really good team, but certainly their goaltending isn't that good either. So I think that Toronto is just kind of just playing up to their potential right now. They needed a little spark. Maybe the Morgan Riley thing did it, but this is just a team that I've kind of been waiting to see something like this from them for a while now. And I think it can continue, to be honest. I guess I'm kind of sucked in, but I think the biggest thing for the Leafs, just like the Oilers, is goaltending. It's not their strength. So a couple really good 5-on-5 teams in Canada right now, but man, one of them needs to get a hot goalie for the playoffs.
Yeah, there were some other interesting games yesterday. Dallas snapped its 4-game losing streak against Carolina. Bruins are failing to holding on to leads here. But as for today, Jeff, Tampa is in New Jersey, so 2 teams battling here for a wild card spot. Both are on the second night of a back-to-back as well. What's the bet in this one?
Yeah, this is an interesting game. You're right. I mean, back-to-back, obviously, both teams like kind of just on the basically the playoff bubble. Devils are out of it right now. I mean, I look at this game. It's kind of funny. You look at the betting trends. The Devils have been terrible covering at home. Terrible. Even last night when they won, they didn't cover. Like they're like 5-25 ATS at home. But then you look at the Lightning. Their straight up record is horrible on the road compared to when they're at home. So I lean Devils here. I think part of the Devils' issues this year is just they have not been healthy. When they've been healthy, they've still looked pretty damn good. They're a really good 5-on-5 team. I'll take the Devils. I just take them straight up on the money line. I think -125. Like I said, we don't need to go to the spread because of just how bad this team has been at covering, but I will take them straight up. I think -125 is very fair. Jack Hughes is back. I just don't have that ton of confidence in Tampa Bay this year. I think this is a team that could get caught unless Vasilevsky really gets his act together in the final quarter of the season here, which could happen. But tonight, definitely take the Devils, in my opinion. And I think that the over would be interesting, but it's juiced up to -142. Yep. I just think that's too much. You could play the alternate line in this one at -7.5. I think that's a way to approach it, but I like the Devils here straight up.
All right, what do you think about Penguins and Flyers? Because that is always a fun matchup here. Although the Penguins have won 7 of the last 10 matchups in this meeting. 5 of those wins have been by 2+ goals here, Jeff. So maybe you target the puck line here. You tell me.
Yeah, I mean, the Flyers are another team to kind of watch down the stretch. I mean, I've kind of been waiting for regression from this Flyers team the entire season, but they've proven me wrong. But obviously, lost Carter Hart for the year basically. It's a tough loss. I mean, at some point that could come back to bite them. The one thing I always look for when the Flyers and Penguins play is the total. And I mean, the total now is at 6, and it's actually juiced to the under. People have obviously caught on to this. These two teams always play tight, low-scoring games. 6 of the last 7 games, you've seen 6 or less goals. The one game that had 7 goals, it was tied 1-1 going into the third period and ended up 4-3 going into OT, so barely squeaked over. I would actually even think about an alternate line here and going under 5.5 goals. I just think that, when these two teams play, it's tight, lower scoring. The Penguins are very good at limiting chances. Their offense doesn't always come through for them, but it's there. And then, like I said, the Flyers, obviously a tighter team as well, don't allow many shots. So like the under, if I was picking a side, it would definitely be Pittsburgh. I like the way they look in their last game. It's not the greatest line, again, -166. Maybe you take Pittsburgh on the 3-way to win in regulation if you like the Penguins, but I would just lean under here.
Well, speaking of the Penguins, like all 4 of those teams we just discussed, so the Penguins, Flyers, Tampa, New Jersey, are listed on the DK Sportsbook to bet on to make or miss the playoffs. Where is the value right now in looking at some make-miss playoff futures?
I mean, I'm a believer in the Devils. Like I really am. +145. They have a bit of a hill to climb here. Like it's not a slam dunk, but when I think when you look at the East, I mean, they're chasing the Red Wings, they're chasing the Lightning, they're chasing the Flyers. At least 2 of those teams, in the Flyers and Red Wings, were teams we really didn't expect necessarily to take a playoff spot at the start of the year. And I think that seeing these teams regress in the back half of the year isn't like that far-fetched an idea. And then also you have the Lightning, who have just, like I mentioned off the top, not good at home. Vasilevsky hasn't been the same. I think these are teams that the Devils are ultimately better than. It's just that the Devils have had to deal with such big injury issues to start the year. But I think that down the stretch, if Jack Hughes stays healthy, especially Jack Hughes, I really think the Devils can reel in one of these teams. +145, I'm there. And then in the West, the Flames are +400. It's an absolute logjam for these last couple playoff spots. But I mean, the Flames really, I'm not sure how they're so much bigger than, say, the Blues or Wild. I mean, the Flames just beat the Oilers last night. Obviously a big win. They're right in it. And I think that +400, that number is just a little bit too big.
All right, Ulrich, again, 7 games on this slate today. Some big names on the ice. Give me a player prop you like right now in the DK Sportsbook.
I got a couple. First one's going to be Connor Bedard. Actually, going to the alternate line with Bedard, I kind of like. I mean, again, Detroit, one of these teams necessarily don't have like a ton of faith in. I could see them winning this game, but I do think it's going to be higher scoring. Bedard is +280, I believe, +270 to get two or more points. So going to the alternate line again, you can take him at -160 to score a point, but I like going for 2 points here with Bedard up against the Red Wings. Again, Blackhawks at home, like that. And then Alex Tuch under 0.5 points, playing the Hurricanes. I know the Hurricanes played last night, but so did the Sabres. Tuch is fine, but he doesn't get like a ton of minutes. He's been more of a third line player here. +110, I think is really fair to go under 0.5 points against a team like the Hurricanes, again, who are extremely shut down, really hard to score against.
All right, in terms of fantasy right now, anybody watching trying to build a money-making DFS lineup, which forward would you suggest that they make sure is in their lineup?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we got like a bit of a pretty big slate actually for a Sunday. We got like a 5-gamer coming on starting at 4 p.m. Eastern or 6 p.m. Eastern, excuse me. So, looking to those later games, got some pretty good lopsided matchups. I mean, I think when you go down the list here, like Philip Forsberg is the guy I would look to. I mean, we do have some what you could call like potentially lower scoring games. I mean, Arizona, Winnipeg could be pretty disastrous. The Rangers, sometimes just play really ugly games, even though it is Columbus. But Forsberg going up against Anaheim, I like this. Anaheim played last night. They allowed like 50 shots on goal. Forsberg coming off a 2-point night against another weak team. That's the dude I would be looking to build around. I mean, I think that the Predators can be a little bit up and down in their play, but I really think against a team like Anaheim, they have 6 or 7 goal potential. Maybe not 7, but we'll say 5 to 6 goal potential. Forsberg is definitely their big cog. Looking to pair him, obviously, with like a Ryan O'Reilly, maybe just stack that first line power play. It's a little bit expensive, but again, smaller slate. There's some pretty good value with teams like potentially even like Chicago or Columbus tonight as well. So,
all right. So then in terms of stacking, you're suggesting then the Predators are probably the team to target?
I like the Predators tonight. Yeah, absolutely. For DFS. Again, I think Detroit's going to be a very popular option going up against Chicago, but and the Rangers against Columbus. But I mean, this Nashville team, like I said, like they have a lot of, what we just call like skilled players. And I think when you put them up against weaker teams, these guys can really come through for big nights. I mean, you could even go down to like Tyson Barrie on defense, who's only 3,600, but certainly capable of a multi-point night against a team like the Ducks. Gustav Nyquist at 4,300 has actually played really well this year. He's just kind of under a point per game pace, but they use him in a lot of special teams. He's only 4,300. And then, O'Reilly, obviously, Roman Josi. I would really look to get Josi and Forsberg in and just build around those two. They're expensive, but again, I think that there's a couple different places you could look to for some pretty good value to fill out your lineup.
All right, Jeff, hang out. We got to take a break because it's nap time. Jake Knapp, baby, PGA Tour rookie, atop the leaderboard at the Mexico Open. Yeah, I don't know if Tony Finau's going to have a shot in this one. We'll see who you're backing after the break, Jeff. All right, let's hit the links right now. Let's go south of the border to Mexico. Florida Swing is going to start next week. Jeff Ulrich is back because he's our beautiful golf guru here on DraftKings Network and VSiN. So how about this, Jeff? Nap time, baby. So this rookie 9th PGA Tour start, and Jake Knapp is going to take his first 54-hole lead into the final day of the Mexico Open, which is underway, you guessed it, in Mexico right now. Had a front nine, 7 under 28, marked the lowest 9-hole score in tournament history yesterday. Jeff, we're talking about a dude whose past life, he was a bouncer at a nightclub. Like, there were pictures of him all over Twitter yesterday. He was like checking IDs, making sure people are smart and making good decisions as they enter the bars here. But like, dude, this could change the trajectory of his career forever. A victory today. He is a heavy favorite because he has a 4-stroke lead today. But there could be some sweaty moments coming down the stretch today. First time holding a lead through 3 rounds. What do you expect out of this kid?
I mean, it's the PGA. It's golf. It's trying to close out your first career win on Sunday. There's got to be at least a couple sweaty moments.
Yeah.
Look, let's just talk about what Jake Knapp has kind of accomplished so far. He's first in strokes gained approach. He's gained 9.2 strokes in approach, and he's gained almost 5 strokes off the tee. This guy's absolutely obliterating the ball, like absolutely just destroying it. And then he's putted extremely well too. I mean, when you put these two together, yeah, you get like a 4 or 5 stroke lead coming into the final round. So, I mean, he's putting up what you would call Tony Finau numbers. This is pretty much what Finau did last year.
Yep.
But Finau is a guy who's won before, right? Sammy Valimaki, the guy who's chasing him, he's plus 500. He's 4 strokes back. I'm not suggesting necessarily that that Knapp is going to blow it, but I mean, Valimaki has played quite a bit on the European Tour. This guy's been in contention before, and he's played really consistently good around this golf course. It's not out of the realm of possibility that Valimaki gets him. That's really the only guy. I mean, you could see something crazy. I really do like the way Robert McIntyre's played the last couple of days. I do think McIntyre has like an 8-9 under in him, but that's kind of, we're getting into like the far-fetched ideas here. I think Knapp closes this. I think Knapp closes this out. No. Like, I really do. I don't think it's going to be close, but Valimaki, certainly you shouldn't just write off. It's going to be really interesting because, again, it's his first time in this position. He didn't even win on the Corn Ferry Tour. Like, this guy's been playing extremely good golf for a long time, but when it's your first professional win we're talking about in like any tour, this is it's going to be a tough day for sure.
And I knew you were going to mention Valimaki because his cousin also plays in the NHL for the Coyotes, so I knew that was definitely on your radar. But like, I'm watching Knapp yesterday, and he had a couple moments where it was like poor chip after poor chip, a few wasted opportunities on the back nine for him to really shut the door on this tournament, put together a truly special 18. So could let some players back into this thing. That's about as deep as you're going to go down the board, though. You don't have any interest in like Chan Kim or EVR entering today's round, because let's also keep in mind last week here, Hideki last week entering the final round was like 150 to 1 to win that thing.
If you're going with anyone, and I mean, again, it can happen. Absolutely. If Jake Knapp shoots 1 over par today, which is not out of the realm of possibility. It's definitely in the realm of logical outcomes that could happen.
Okay.
I would look to Robert McIntyre. He's plus 8,000. This is a player people forget. The Scottish Open, like about 8 months ago, this dude entered the final round like 6 shots back, shot 64 in like a hurricane, had the clubhouse lead, and then Rory McIlroy came up and just, as like an evil villain, birdied the last final 2 holes to win the thing. But like, Robert McIntyre had that thing in his absolute grasp with a fantastic final round. Like I said, he ended his round with an eagle yesterday. He's looked really good the last 2 days. Would not shock me if he came out and shot like 7 or 8 under. So that's the guy I would look to if you're looking to burn a little money there.
Yeah, producer Drew's a big Robert McIntyre fan, so that is music to his ears. Not as many props available since this tournament is underway right now. Is there anything that's currently available that catches your eye before we get to a few other stories?
I mean, I think that, if you're looking for some placement bets, I mean, Maverick McNeely has played a little bit better yesterday as well, top 20 plus 280. I don't hate that. I think when you're looking at matchups, I don't hate the Henrik Norlander minus 105 number you're getting versus Ben Silverman. Silverman was really good yesterday, but man, it is hard to follow up a really hot round with another one. Yeah. Norlander's been pretty consistent. I would look to him today at minus 105 as the slight underdog there.
Yeah, it was a relatively quiet week around the golf world, Jeff. Again, the Florida Swing is going to start next week. They're going to be in Palm Beach Gardens, and then you know what that means. After the Florida Swing comes the Masters, and Neiman was handed a spot in the Masters this past week. Why did organizers dish out a special invite to the now live golfer?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of reasons. I mean, first of all, I think that the Masters it's a forward-thinking group. It's funny to say that, a place that took so long to open up their gates to women and stuff. But in terms of how they organize their tournament, they want the best there. And they recognize that Joaquin Neiman, despite being outside of the top 50, is one of the game's best emerging talents. He won in Australia. He tried to gain some points so that he could get into the event. He's already won on the Live Tour. They wanted to recognize excellence, and that's why they invited him. It's why they invited a couple other players as well, guys who had started the season extremely well, probably weren't going to qualify. But, they looked at the other world tours outside of the PGA, and they said, these guys deserve to be there, and they do. Joaquin Neiman is a guy who's won at Riviera, a place where Adam Scott, Bubba Watson, Dustin Johnson, all Masters winners have won. This guy's live to win the event over the next 5 years. I'm not saying he's winning this year. I'm just saying he's a player who, especially with the form he's in, should be at this event right now. Yeah. And it's a good decision by the Masters to invite him.
No, I totally agree. And where do the live guys currently sit right now on your Masters betting card? Because you look at the top odds on the board. I mean, we know Jon Rahm's a defending champion. We know that Brooks Koepka has gotten very close at times. And then, there's Cam Smith, who always seems to kind of flirt with the green jacket when he is here. So we have three live guys in like the top 10 odds on the board right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, Rahm and Koepka, I mean, they're kind of almost like perpetual bets here. I think that if you're looking at Koepka, who I would have a little bit more interest in than Rahm, I just don't like the transition that Rahm's kind of going through. I just think it may affect his preparation a little bit. But Koepka's certainly a guy you should watch. If he gets a little bit bigger, I would be interested in him. The real value, the guys I really have my eye on, we just talked about Neiman. He's plus 5,000. I think that's a terrific number. Again, just with the fact, the form he's shown to start the year. Yeah. But Dustin Johnson at plus 2,800. Oh. The dude's already won on live. He's had 2 live starts. He's finished T5 and he's won. This is a dude who he owns the scoring record at Augusta. Yeah. Yeah, he's 39 years old, but I mean, like, he's Dustin Johnson. He's super athletic. We've seen guys win here in their 40s. Why is he plus 2,800? And Cameron Smith is plus 22, and Colin Morikawa and Justin Thomas are plus 22. We're talking about a former Masters winner 3 years ago. It wasn't like 13 years ago. 3 years ago, obliterated the course. He's playing really good golf. I think Dustin Johnson's a fantastic value, and he's one of the guys, if I was looking to in the futures right now, it'd be my first target.
Yeah, that was when the Masters, I think it was in the fall, when Dustin Johnson won.
It was.
So, yeah, maybe he's one of those fall golf guys. Like, I'm a huge fall golf guy. The leaves start changing colors. You get out there, you just feel like you're one with nature. So let's see if he can do it in the spring. So before the Players, before the Masters, before the Florida Swing tees off, comes the match here. Lexi Thompson, Rose Zhang, Rory McIlroy here, Jeff, Max Homa. This is tomorrow night from West Palm Beach. So the men and women, they're playing together, but they're not on teams. Each person is playing individually here, Jeff, in a skins match. So which one would you bet to win the most skins money? Because that is an option we have on the DK Sportsbook right now. Now, let's keep in mind, they're all playing from the same tee on the 4 par 3s, just 12 holes in this event, and different tees on the remaining 8 holes.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a good thing to point out, because obviously, if we're playing the same tees, I mean, I'm just going to say, like, Rory at plus 210 would be fantastic
right?
value.
400-yard drives.
I mean, but look, I'm going to take Lexi Thompson here.
Yeah,
I'm going to take her at plus 300. Why not? I mean, like, we're talking about a skins game match. We're talking about psychological battles. Who would you rather back? I mean, I think these women are a little bit more just a little bit more prepared for this event, quite frankly. I mean, Rory, Max Homa, like you said, we got the Florida swing coming up, the Masters. I think this is a chance for, Rose Zhang and Lexi Thompson to kind of prove themselves, showcase. A lot of people who don't watch women's golf are going to be watching this. I would take a chance with them. I really would. I think these are both extremely good golfers to begin with. And I just think that, psychologically, they're going to be a little bit more up for this. So plus 300, Lexi Thompson, that's where I would go personally. I mean, look, it's the match. It's a exhibition at the end of the day. It's not exactly something that I would go spending a ton of money on, but certainly to take a shot that with one of these women that they come through, and I think it's a realistic scenario, and I like the plus 300 you're getting. I mean, I would rather go that route than take a shorter number on one of the guys.
You like Lexi Thompson. We like you, Jeff. Thanks for hanging out with us, big man. We are going to wrap up the Sweat Sunday morning edition of the Sweat next when Julian Edlow will unfortunately return to talk basketball. All right, folks, back here to wrap up a Sunday morning edition of The Sweat. We appreciate you hanging out with us. I'm Emerson Lancia. This is Julian Edlow. We've talked almost every sport imaginable, major sport imaginable up to this point.
No Russian darts or ping pong.
Yeah, no. Or what was the show we were
specialty.
watching? There was tag. It was like competitive tag and dudes just tagging each other.
Yeah.
So anywho, let's talk about dudes playing full court press right now. That's what this segment's called. We'll get some college basketball here in just a second. But right now, the NBA is back after the All-Star break, Julian, and it has been chippy. So we had the Heat and the Pels and then the Hornets and the Warriors and some scuffles earlier this week. A lot of fans on Twitter and around the NBA world saying real hoops are back. Last night, there was a scuffle at the end of the Wolves-Nets game. I love this because one of my biggest complaints about the NBA in recent years is all of these dudes are just friends. They're bros. They want to lift each other up on Instagram. They all want to become pals and hang out and sit on banana boats together outside of the season. I miss the old NBA. We need fights. We need these dudes to hate each other. How do you feel about the NBA chippiness increasing all of a sudden?
I mean, I would maybe prefer some chippiness between like the Celtics and Lakers, or even the Knicks and Celtics last night.
You want to go back to some classic rivalries here, like Larry Bird,
Sixers, Nuggets,
dudes.
Jokic, and Embiid. Like just a little bit more juice to the chippiness, because the chippiness so far has been Hornets, Warriors in a 13-point game, Nets, Timberwolves. Like these don't hold any. These are just guys with little issues late in games with non-competitive teams.
There was Draymond and Grant Williams too.
So I don't care about Draymond and Grant Williams.
I'm just saying, I'm giving you more examples of how these teams are getting a little more heated. Also, it could be good and bad, I guess, in terms of like betting in DFS, depending on when these scuffles are happening. A majority of them are happening towards the end of the game, but some earlier in games, these guys getting ejected. All of a sudden, you're like, no, dude, you were 2 points away from, hitting your points total or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it could come into play in certain markets for some of this stuff for sure, but just in terms of the chippiness, give it to me in like a high-profile matchup, and we have some today. We have Sixers-Bucks. Lakers, Suns, Warriors, Nuggets. Like, get into it in one of those games, and I'm a little more interested.
Like, NBA's never going to admit it, but a few minor fights a year is good for the league. I love it.
Sure.
These dudes just blasting each other.
Maybe even a big fight.
Yeah, I love that.
Not a malice at the palace, but something.
I think there was a fan that threw something in one of those scuffles the other day, too. And someone was like, that fan's trying to start another malice at the palace. I said, no, all good. Okay, let's get back to some college basketball here. About 7 minutes to go in this show. You said during the break, go back to the Rutgers, Maryland game for me. And I said, what's going on with you, dude? So now is your opportunity to hit on that game again.
Yeah, we went through sides and games. I know you've been very interested in totals.
I'm talking about like totals. I said, I'm a total dude, but more on the NBA side. What do we got here?
And I skimmed over the part in my notes where I said, what about the first half under in Maryland and Rutgers? So Maryland, Rutgers, first half under 60.5. It's 129 for the game, so we're getting, you got to really go low here. 60 now. Okay, so it's going to even tick down. You got to pay a premium on getting the first half here, but these are two of the worst offenses in college hoops in terms of the power conferences. Maryland and Rutgers can get into rock fights, and we saw it the first time around. Game stayed well under. First half had 46 points, stayed well under. These two teams, you have Maryland, they're 17-9-1 to the under this season. Rutgers, 17-8 to the under this season. Two very poor offenses and two of the better defenses in the conference. You have an early, noon Sunday tip.
Yeah. Everyone's a little sluggish on Sunday mornings. Doesn't matter
Jersey Mike's Arena, stuffing their face with subs like Danny DeVito and all those commercials.
Oh my God, they have a great chicken Philly sub there.
Chicken Philly, that's weird. I see it on the menu. I've never gotten that one. I either go
excellent.
Philly or Italian. But anyway, this time I'm going under for the first half under for lunch.
Look at you, dude.
Sunday afternoon.
Little double stuffed sub for you, big man. Stuff the betting guard with Marquette and Xavier for us.
This matchup doesn't make me as hungry. I haven't bet anything in this one quite yet. But Xavier's on the bubble, and they need a big win, or a signature win to get in. I don't think this is going to be it for them playing at Marquette. They're just 2-6 on the road this season. but they are 5-3 against the spread away. So when I see a big number like this, Marquette wins at home. They're 12-1, but you go to ATS, they're 9-4. They've been solid in their home building, but just given the, Marquette just needs to kind of advance here. They have that UConn game circled for later. Xavier should have more urgency here, and if they can just keep it tight, I would lean to taking, what is it? This has gone up. I think this was 9, and it's gone up over double digits. I would lean to taking points with Xavier, just given the urgency. Probably going to ultimately pass on the game.
Okay, yeah. Eagles 9-4 ATS on their home hardwood here, but
I said that.
Yeah, I know you did. I'm just repeating what you said in case people weren't listening to you and they listened to me. MSU OSU. Is there anything in this game that you like? Yeah, Michigan State, Ohio State.
Yeah, I got it. You threw me a curveball there for a second.
Because I made you think a little more.
Yeah. So
are you freaking out right now?
No, Ohio State's bad. They got the big win over Purdue at home. Are you okay?
No,
in the first game since the coaching move. And then they went on the road and things kind of evened out against Minnesota. Minnesota, the best team in college basketball. The best team really ever against the spread in college hoops. And Minnesota got that one at home. Now you're on the second game of a road trip here. Where is Ohio State going to kind of level off here? It's a big game for Michigan State because they just when we thought that Izzo and Sparty was finding it in March, they drop one at home as 9.5-point favorites to Iowa. I think they're going to come back and look really good here, and I have not been very high on Ohio State, who is now 0-8, I believe. 0-8 straight up on the road, and just 1-7 against the spread in those games. So they've been a great road fade. It's a big number. I would probably look first half here, given the urgency. Michigan State coming off a really bad loss. Cut that number in half, play Michigan State first half if I'm playing this way.
Are like the metrics overvaluing the Spartans at all? I know you and Josh love to push the Ken Palm rankings, right? So Ken Palm here tabs Michigan
Still
State
says they're
as the
good.
16th best team in the sport.
Yeah, they just keep losing. At some point, you got to factor in the results that are actually happening on the court. But when you look at the team, this is a veteran team with a lot of good guards and size. They are very capable of making a run in March. And when you have a team like Purdue, who I ultimately don't believe in, and Illinois is beatable, Michigan State could win. They're a team that I might, given the number, we'll see what it comes out at, bet to win the conference tournament when that rolls around. I think that'll be an interesting market. But Michigan State is fully capable of making a run in March, which has kind of become overstated over the years, Izzo in March, blah, blah, blah. But this team is very good, and they're capable, and they have the veterans to make a run.
You know what team is very good right now?
Who?
South Florida.
Yeah.
They've got a 12-game win streak right now. I'm going to be hosting SMU, the Mustangs, a little AAC showdown today. Wow, point total this one, so 147. Again, I'm a total guy.
Sure.
So right now, you're back in South Florida, I take it?
I lean to South Florida. I haven't played a side in it. They're 13-2 at home. They're 6-3 straight up as an underdog this season.
Wow.
They're ATS at home, 11-3-1.
They're like the Chiefs of college basketball.
Yeah, USF. Can't name a player on the team, but one of them is apparently the Patrick Mahomes of college hoops. You go to SMU, 5-5 on the. They've been really good at home, 13-2. They're 5-5 on the road. They are 7-3 ATS on the road. USF had the big win over FAU. Is there, a letdown coming?
I was watching that on the plane last week. That was last Sunday.
Good job. Is there a letdown coming for them? They didn't let down against UTSA. They didn't cover. They were 6-point favorites. They won by 5. SMU is looking for a bounce back. They just lost to FAU, and FAU's bounce back game from that. So, SMU is probably the overall better team, but USF's just kind of been that team like South Carolina, winning in these improbable spots. Market misprices them. They've been really good as underdogs, so I would look to them as home dogs.
South Florida, South Carolina, dude. Started at the bottom, now they're here, right?
Sure.
Any other college basketball bets before we wrap up the show that you want to push out or remind people that they may have missed earlier? Anything they can take advantage of on the DK Sportsbook?
Nothing else really to highlight. The other bet that I did do, I played St. John's plus 2.5. They're up to 3, so better number. St. John's at home against Creighton. It's the Creighton letdown spot off of the big UConn win, and the Johnnies need one bad.
All right, timing is everything. Am I right?
Sure.
Like, it's time to end this show,
That's
everybody.
true.
I'm Emerson Lotzi, Joy, and Edlow. So we're going to be back here next Saturday. Maybe Steve Buchanan will be back from Las Vegas. It's been there for 3 weeks since the
Stevie
Super Bowl.
Slots. He still works here?
I have no idea, to be honest with you. He doesn't text me back, so we will bully him later today, as in like 5 seconds after the show ends. We'll see you, folks. Have a great weekend.